Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the really first time back for the AV experience after MWAVE. I'm Ryan from Home Theater Savants, and this is Jonathan from Jonathan Von England. Um, well, that's your YouTube channel, so it rolled. It
Sure, sure.
kind of maybe sounded funny, but that's where we were going. Where am I hearing myself? All right, I fixed that. But how you been, Jonathan? You
Doing well.
recover after everything? It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was on a emotional high for a few days after MWA. I had a lot of fun at that show. You and Ryan did a fantastic, or you and Michael did a fantastic job on the show.
It turned out well. It was stressful. It was about 200 people bigger than the previous year. It's always a lot of stress, and during the show I'm like, am I going to do this again? Is this worth doing again? I don't want to do this again. And then when you come out of it, it's okay. That was worth it. When you start hearing how much people enjoyed the show, how
Mhm.
much people just liked coming together for the relationships and the social side of it with like interests, it's really cool to see. And I think that's what brings me back. But couple that with the stress of trying to get the Mad VR Experience Center done while getting MWave going and getting it set up and having the show going while doing demos. I mean,
It
you're
was a
not
lot.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
not unaccustomed to the demo stuff because you had home theater demos that you were doing, and you
I
have
did.
quite a few more chairs than I do. So, how did that go? Let's start there. How was that?
It went really well. I had a lot of fun. My HDMI cord died for my second session, which was rather dumb. So I spent some time troubleshooting that for those guys.
I
But
did hear about that.
yeah,
I don't remember who
frustrating.
told me,
It's an
but
active fiber cable. So really, just 3 years old, it just decided to die during that second session.
mm-hmm.
But we got it swapped out, and the rest of it went fine. First and third sessions were awesome. I ended up having another session on Friday night. We had a blast.
Do you guys like
Everybody's
it this way or this way? I kind of like this way more,
probably
maybe,
better till I
but
get a better camera.
maybe.
Pretty
Well, I
green.
don't know. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's fine. I'm not. What does chat think? I'm gonna leave it like this for the time being.
Yeah.
But so you had a fiber cable fail. I had a demo. Actually, when Anthony Gramani was at my house, I was having issues. So I had fiber cable problems. And
HDMI?
yes, dude,
What in the world?
I don't
It's like a
know.
gremlin that should not have happened.
I don't know. Mine's 30 meters long though.
Hmm.
And when I ran it out of the Envy, I was greeted with an HDCP error. And for anybody that doesn't know, and I didn't know this until recently, HDCP on a fiber cable is not done over fiber. It's still done over copper. So if it's done over copper, just like with audio and any electrical signal, the longer the run, if the gauge of the wire isn't large enough or the emitter isn't long enough, it's going to fail, right? It's going to deteriorate over the length of the run. And it did deteriorate.
So wait a second. I
So,
have a question on this,
mm-hmm,
and I don't know, but I was under the impression there was copper HDMI, which has a max of like
mm-hmm,
16 feet
mm-hmm.
with HDMI 2.1. There's active fiber, which is transitioning through multiplexing everything over optical, and then there's hybrid, which still has fiber and copper.
So most AOCs still do HDCP over copper. There are very few cables that do HDCP over fiber.
Interesting.
It's just how they've been done. It can be done, and I actually just ordered a cable that does it fiber over everything over fiber. But your bullet trains, your binaries, your like Vanco, Rui Pro, it's all over. HDCP is all over copper. The video signal is over
Optical
fiber,
fiber. Yeah.
but everything else is, or the HDCP signal is still done over copper. I was as shocked as you when I learned this.
Yeah, that's
And when I
interesting.
learned this, it explained a lot because most devices, we're very lucky that Envy throws up. Matthias has coded it so that Envy throws up that, hey, your display does not support HDCP, which identifies that you've got an HDCP error because like the projector supports HDCP. You've just got an issue with the signal getting there. So when you see that message, you've got something going on. But most chains, you're not going to see crap. You're just going to see a black screen, and you're going to be like, well, crap, things aren't working. So what do? You're like, it just leaves you in this pit of despair because you have no idea what's going on. It is just another check mark or tally, or I'm thinking of like an abacus as the thing comes across.
Yeah,
There's probably a name for that. Like just another notch on something else failing that you can't figure out what the heck's going on, and it's just I don't know, pain in the butt.
Yes, for
So,
sure.
how did you fix yours?
Luckily, you had loaned me an HDMI cable to do some of my comparisons a while back. I still had that, so I yanked it out of the
I was
storage and
wondering where
used
that was.
it. Save the day.
I'm just kidding. Um, glad it started working. Mine, I've been through 5 HDMI cables,
Mm.
and it has been a nightmare. Like, I'll get it working, it'll work for a day or two, then it'll fail. I had one where, because the setup's pretty complex. It feeds into a AV Pro Edge 8x8 matrix, and then it offshoots to like the Storm, the Trinov. There's multiple things going out to the projectors. We were messing with some EDIDs on the Rui Pro. We changed an EDID. Rui Pro vaporized. Like, it just stopped working. No matter what I did, bypass NV, kaleidoscape straight to projector, kaleidoscape straight to another display. Cable was toast. No idea what happened. You changed the EDID, and it was
You wouldn't think
failed.
an EDID was screwed up. Could it be a voltage
It
issue or
probably,
something? If
maybe
you're
it
cooking
was.
5 cables, maybe you got too hot of a splitter or something.
Well, I didn't cook 5 cables. Like, some of them work. I've just been like going through different manufacturers. The Rui Pro is the only one that I've seen that has failed, right? It has fully failed. So I've tried binary. The binary worked for a while. It was an 18 gigabit per second binary. It worked for a while, and then it decided it didn't want to work anymore. It's like, this is too hard. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And it stopped. So I started with an AV Pro Edge, and now I'm back to AV Pro Edge. They seem to be working. They've So the current setup, I'm going Kaleidoscape, AV Pro Edge 8x8 matrix, Envy, scalar, projector.
Oh my gosh! You got to have HDMI handshakes from
It's
hell.
a disaster. Disaster.
30-second HDMI.
Oh my
lock
God.
on.
It actually doesn't take that long. But so what we've found is that the Christie does not like communicating with the Envy because of the HDCP error, right? So the scalar, the only reason the scalar is there is to fix that HDCP error.
I see.
And what we think is, it's not taking HDCP out. What we think is happening is the bus that is pushing out the voltage for HDCP on the NVIDIA GPU just is not pushing it hard enough, and it's deteriorating to the point when it reaches the Christie, it doesn't work.
Why don't you just use a removal? Can't you just get one of those little black box HDCP removal devices? Yes.
That's illegal, Jonathan. And working for Mad VR, I don't think my boss would appreciate that very much.
So the scalar's turned off. It's just being a booster, basically.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because I talked to Jason Dustle from Meridio. He's like the AV Pro Edge HDMI guru. And I've had conversations with Jeff from DPL Labs, who does tons of like very intrinsic and minute measurements and oscilloscopes and all kinds of stuff on the cables and the buses themselves. Because we've been having Envy analyze. We're trying to figure out what is going on with the HDMI industry. And there is many things going on with the HDMI industry. So it's very frustrating. And things just get pronounceably more frustrating the longer the cables get.
Sure.
Which most of these guys are like, you don't know, because you think that HDMI has been around for a long time, and it has, but in comparatively to other media and broadcast systems, it hasn't. And I guess not very many people are running AOCs that are this long, and it's just causing problems. So we'll get to the bottom of it eventually, maybe. But we derailed there. Let's go back to talking about your home theater tours that was going on. So we talked about your HDMI that eventually failed, but that was the only thing that I heard about your tour. Like that, it was just in passing. So it wasn't like, oh, Jonathan, the only thing I'll ever remember was that he had an HDMI failure, and that was it. That's not how that went. It was just somebody said that Jonathan was frustrated because he had an HDMI failure. But how did everything else go?
I thought it all went really smooth. We listened to music for an hour and a half each session, and then we went to some YouTube videos for a very short while, and then we went to some movie clips that I curated. It all went well. It was smooth. It was fun. I got a lot of compliments. Like it was a joy. I really enjoyed doing it.
But you told me before this stream that you're now thinking of changing something.
Small changes.
Small
So
small changes. 18-inch subwoofer drivers. Small changes. No.
the near field, you guys have heard me talk about that for a year and a half at this point. I tried to get rid of them. I had the stacks up front. You just can't. I don't think you can get rid of near field. Like I tried it, I just couldn't quite do it. Put the near field back. I'm just like, yeah, they got to stay. So now it's just thinking about putting near field behind the rear seat, so it'll have 6 near field subs, one for every seat, which just evens the experience. Like right now, I got 2 8-inch subwoofers in each seat back, all 6 chairs. That does a lot. You get nice tactile sensation, but not that really like more aggressive hit that the 18-inch can do compared to 8-inch driver. So the 8-inch does like a nice, think acoustic energy, like a guitar chord or piano chord or something. It vibrates the chair just a little bit, like a little nuanced vibration. It feels nice. It feels natural. But if you want that like Kraftwerk type thump that comes from a driver moving a whole lot with a low frequency hurt, near field 18 does that way better than an 8-inch driver. So that's all. Just adding more near field at some point. And
Just a little change.
Parts Express has a 14% off for July 4th weekend, or I guess it's past now, but it's through the 7th, so a couple more days. So I might just go ahead and take advantage of that.
Well,
and
you'd be losing money if you didn't do it.
And then the other part of me is like, Jonathan, you got it dialed in. Just leave it alone for a little while. That's the other side, the smart side.
So what did people think about the second near field, the small near field up by the head?
The 8-inch seat backs,
yeah.
They all liked it. So we went through and I showed a demonstration. I showed what the butt kickers do, what the 18-inch do, and what the 8-inch subwoofers in the seat back do. And everybody agrees. I mean, they're all on the same page. The best of the 3 is the near field, like just is. But they all add. They're all like, it's better with all together than just any one or two of them alone. So the butt kickers aren't the most musical. They're good for just shaking you violently during a movie. You can time align them, but they never quite feel as natural as like a driver. So I have them crossed over with a low pass filter, basically. So it plays anything below 38 hertz, so the shallow slope. And then the seat backs are kind of the opposite. They're playing everything above about 44 hertz. So there's a little bit of a kind of a dead area between them where they kind of blend together. I chose a little higher with the seat backs because they have a natural resonance frequency of in the like low 40 hertz thing. And I kind of wanted to stay away from that. So I raised it a little bit higher so they're rolling off for their natural resonant frequency. And then the 18s are just playing full range. So they all blend together very, very nicely. It's probably the best I've ever had my tactile dialed in.
Did you email the seat manufacturer and say, hey, you've got a resonance frequency at X frequency?
No, I just mean like the driver, like the driver's natural frequency is probably
I'm
around
just imagining their support getting this email. You have a resonance frequency at this. You need to address this. It doesn't work with head-mounted near fields. Please see RU frequency response. And this is exactly where it's happening.
I think I do have some of those to kind of point out. If I wanted to get real serious, I could go in and do some very narrow PEQs, but I haven't taken that far. It feels really good as it is.
Did you adjust your... Go ahead.
If you have a song that has all kinds of different bass notes, like think of a variety of different bass notes instead of just one or two different hits, and it's kind of going up and down the scale, you can tell a little bit that some notes hit a little louder than others, and that's where you would adjust the PEQ. Like if I wanted to dial down, say I needed to dial down 34 hertz or something. I'm just making that up. But say I noticed that there was like a resonance in the chair at that, I could put a narrow filter in at 34 hertz and kind of cut some of that out, but I haven't taken it to that level yet. I also learned, and I don't think we've talked about this yet, but this is in the tuning the couple weeks before MWAVE. I also learned that my middle seat compared to the outside seats is about 500th of a millisecond different on timing. So there's that's
500th of a millisecond?
Yeah. And it's noticeable. If you're sitting there doing the way I dial it in, it's noticeable. I'll show you sometime when you come over. Here's how you can tell. You play something with a nice kick drum or a nice regular bass line. And when you're dialing in the butt kickers or the near field, if you're going up 100th of a millisecond, like a 0.01 milliseconds, as you go up, it'll go from being more of a distinct tactile feeling to just kind of blending in at a certain point. And when it blends in and it doesn't feel like it's there anymore, that's when you're on the right timing. And if you go off 500ths of a millisecond, it's back again. Like you feel that tactile. When you have it blended in and you don't feel it anymore, that's when you know you have it right, and you can turn it up or down from there. And it feels very good with music. And movies are.
Did you immediately have your kids test this?
No, I could just tell it because I got it all dialed in the middle seat, right? And then you go to sit on the side seat and you're like, it's not quite as good as it is in the middle seat. So I was
now you're saying 500th.
That's right.
Of a millisecond, not half a millisecond, but
in the mini DSP.
500th.
Yes, and I'm not talking about all music. You can't tell on all music. I'm talking about I have a tactile playback which has got some of the most tactile, like very high kick drum or very strong tactile feel that I found. It's on an Apple iTunes playlist. And I'm talking playing through some very choice songs to find that out. If you're playing regular music, you probably never tell the difference between the three seats.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're playing that particular music and you're in that seat and you're in front of the controls, like going up and down with the the keyboard, you can tell. And I tried to point that out to some of my guests, and I saw a little eye rolling, like there's no way you could tell this feels wonderful type thing. But if you're playing with it, if you're sitting there with the controls and you're masterfully tuning it, you can tell.
Jonathan has a really sensitive bottom.
So the outcome of that is that I would probably need like an 8-channel mini DSP, and you could do one time setting for the middle, one for the back middle, and then you could probably share a time setting for the left and right, front and rear. So that would be 4 channels that you would need for each type of transducer, 4 for the 8s, 4 for the butt kickers.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be 8 channels of mini DSP that you would need to do it. To do it, I think as absolute best as you could.
Man,
it's pretty fun, man.
Every time MWAVE comes around with you, some new nuance is discovered.
Mm-hmm.
You and your theater. Now, the last thing from the group that I heard was you were discussing moving your top channels.
Maybe not moving, more along the lines of like removing. So we talked about that a little bit in the past, but my main seating row, it splits the difference between the front and the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have press content or when you have a channel that's very heavy in the center, top middle, which is very common with 6 channels, if you had 4 channels, it splits. If you have 2 channels in press content, or if you have just 2 channels in the objects, it'll split it between the front and the rear. So in the normal 4-channel arrangement, this would be front and rear, and I'm right in the middle, and it images very well like in a stereo signal between it. But if I have 6 channels and it's doing top middle, now it's only playing out of this speaker, or if the majority of content is in that set of speakers, that's behind my seating row by a pretty significant margin. Mm-hmm. So it moves my whole soundstage back, which is not ideal for my front row. Like just me listening out here by myself is not ideal. And then the other thing we figured out through some testing before MWAVE with a friend of mine named Tim, and I've kind of noticed this before that even, but we just confirmed it through quite a bit of like very serious dedicated testing, is that the rear row is not better with 6 channels either. And the reason is several-fold. If you're trying to set levels, those speakers are so close to where you sit, they're like 2 feet above your head. So it's hard to set levels properly and still have it match the front seat because you're off axis. So you need more SPL to go to the front. And if you have more SPL up there to measure for the front row, then this seat's just getting blasted, even if it just is. So what you can do to accommodate is you can lower the volume on those rear speakers, maybe drop the SPL by 3 dB or something. And then your front sound stage will suffer a little bit because the top rears are not hard to aim. The top rears are not playing as loud as they should, so your front sound stage suffers. And the rear sound stage is not really benefiting either because those speakers are oftentimes silent. Mm-hmm. And when they become active, it's almost startling because they're still right overhead. So they're kind of distracting in a way. What we had figured out is if you turn those off, and I just run 4 channels, even though I have 6, I just turn those off, and I play something with nice overhead effects, it images between the rear surround and the top rear just like top rear ceilings, just like those speakers are there. In fact, all my MWAVE guests, every single thing, I played it in 4-channel, and when I tell them at some point in the demo that we're just listening to 4 channels, those are up just cosmetic right now, people are like, oh, I thought they were on. I couldn't even tell they weren't on. So like, in my room, it's detrimental to have them. So I'm going to play with those a little bit. I have an idea. To just send the same signal that's going to my middles to my top rears. So a splitter, effectively. I don't know if I'll need to add delays or not, but a splitter, I'm going to try it first. And then I'll just lower the levels of those like 6 dB down or something. So they'd be playing the same content as these ones, but just lower the level. I think that might work well for the rear row without causing any detriment to the front row. So I want to play with that.
Compromise
because of short ceilings. Yeah.
I got short ceilings.
Yeah.
Just got to get rid of the second row.
Not happening. I got 6 people in my family, and we like using the chairs. Plus, when we have guests over.
It's unfortunate. Kids are just going to have to draw straws.
You know what happens if you only have 4 chairs like I did before? There's kids sitting in your lap during a movie, which is which is fine, but they don't sit still. You know, I got a 6 and 8-year-old. They're pretty squirrely.
I
So it's
guess
nice
that's
to have my own
true.
chair.
I guess that's true. Any other changes planned? It's like you don't stop.
No, that sounds like my wife. The reality is, we've talked about this before too. If you really enjoy the hobby, it doesn't really stop, and you're not doing it because there's some sort of urgent need. It's just because you like to toy with it. I mean, this is a hobby for us. We love it, so
Yeah,
there is no
I
real
guess that
end.
is. I guess that is true.
Yeah.
Somebody was met. Blood says Ryan's mic volume is too low. Is it better? Is that better? I
Oh,
dropped Jonathan's a little bit and I raised mine.
if you're too low, then okay, you already did it in the
I already
background.
did it. Blood, is that any better? Chad, is that better? Do we sound even? Do I need to lower Jonathan anymore?
Test.
Too loud. Anybody? Well, don't all just reach out and talk at once. I mean,
So Tony says do 2 calibrations, one for front row and one with second. I do. I have that. And I have them on a speaker A and a speaker B preset, speaker 1 and speaker 2 preset with the Marantz. So that works pretty well.
what
But
do you think?
if reality, there's not really ever a situation that I've found where 6 channels is better than 4 in my room arrangement. I haven't found that yet. So at that point, like, why? I mean, I have it. I've tried it, but why?
Still a little low. All right, we'll drop Jonathan again.
Yeah. Well, I can
Okay.
drop it here if I'm.
No. I got it. I got it. It's easier for one person in control than having it multiple. Just leave yours alone. Okay. So I dropped him a little bit more, and we'll see if that's any better. So staying on your theater, how do you like, because this is something I've been considering in mine, do you like your side surrounds being up that high?
I do. I wish they could be a little higher, actually.
What?
Yeah. If I had taller ceilings, they would be a little higher.
Don't you feel like the separation between your tops and your sides is a little too close?
No, because I have my top middles or my tops in a little bit more than, like, they're not in the direct plane with my left and right, for instance. They're in a little further. So it's not a problem. Like,
so I've been debating on
overhead
whether
is
I
not.
should lower mine. Mine are pretty high. And
Well, so as long as you can avoid, you don't want that speaker firing directly into somebody's ear. There's nothing worse than that if you're sitting on the sidewall.
that's their
I haven't-
problem.
Yeah, I haven't been over to your room to see how your stuff's all laid out, but I say higher because the design of my speakers, right? They're attenuated or shaded at the bottom side of the speaker, and so by virtue of that CBT design, they actually should be higher. And then the shaded part is more in line with the closest seat, and the part that fires harder is higher up, which means that it
Stop being so
addresses correctly.
scientific.
So
Stop
yeah, I
being
mean,
like
the design of these
design.
speakers would be to be a little higher.
Let's look at him listening to the technical manufacturing specification and all of this stuff and how they should be implemented. Don't do that. You just
Yeah,
make it
well,
too easy.
There's a simulator. JBL has simulators for the CVT, and they should be higher than I have them, but I just don't have the ceiling height. At some point, they would interfere with my ceiling heights if I put them up on the ceiling. And they're good enough now. But my back row, you can see the difference, right? Like, the back row is 2 foot below the speaker. The rear row is a foot into the speaker. You know what I mean? So you can kind of see there.
Yeah.
It'd be ideal to, maybe if I had enough ceiling height, to, like, stage them up in the back and have them kind of like a commercial movie theater does, make them follow the rows.
I'll be interested to see what you think if you come over to, you think I should lower them, because it's not hard to lower them. I just have to move the mount and then drop them and then switch the panel, like the bottom panel with the top panel, because they're the same size, just one's acoustically transparent. And
can you easily do it on your grid, like your room within a room?
They're the same size. The panels are, so
They're
it's not
just
hard.
yeah, just test it.
It's a lot of work to test it.
I've changed my height about 4 times in this room, and I've done drywall patching each time I've done it to get to where I want.
Oh my gosh.
I'm serious.
I'm debating because, you said, oh, well, if somebody's sitting right next to the speaker, it's going to be blasting them in the ear. I don't care.
Yes, you do, because they'll.
No, I don't.
And it will ruin their experience.
But I only care about the 2 seats in the middle. That's all I care about.
You have 3 seats. How can you have 2 seats in the middle?
Because you're like sharing in the middle. My wife and I'm not designing for the whole couch.
Oh, you guys are curling up together instead of sitting in your respective seats, huh?
I'm a narcissist.
You're sitting on a crack is what you're doing, and your wife.
It doesn't feel like you're on a crack. Maybe I like the crack. I don't have a sensitive butt like you do. Okay, it doesn't bother me. So
it's
let
easier
me.
on your hemorrhoids. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm not saying you have hemorrhoids. It's just a bad joke. Sorry, buddy.
Whatever. Whatever.
I don't know. I don't like sitting on the crack on a couch. I guess to each of their own.
I don't really. Let's move on. Um, oh, so let's talk about MWAVE a little bit. I know you had a little bit of a stream with some of the old timers in the enthusiast group. What were some of your thoughts? This isn't like a critique. I just want to know what you
Man,
enjoyed.
I truly think it gets better every single year, and I think you guys did a knock-up job on it. Like, it was just fantastic. There was a lot of nice vendors there. There was equipment that most of us have never heard before, equipment we've never seen before, brand new off the shelf, brand new off the line type products. Cool demonstrations, cool comparisons. The projector room was awesome. The TV room was awesome. I didn't even go into the Tidal versus Spotify room or whatever it was. I missed that. I don't even know what room it was in. Would have liked to have checked that out.
2204.
Yeah.
Or 2209, excuse me.
The Cinemic room was really fun with the Black Swans. It's the first time I've gotten to hear the Black Swans because we haven't made a chance to go over to your room yet. But
I didn't want you to listen to mine anyway.
I loved them, man. When they played 2-channel music that I selected, they gave me the remote and let me pick 4 songs. I got emotional. I'm not.
They're really good.
They brought tears to my eyes on stuff, and
they're really good.
Telling the guys, like, that's like, all right, you know, there's like tiers of speakers, and that's maybe the first one I've ever heard that's like the next tier up. That's how I felt about them, at least with that stuff I played. And I don't know how much, if any of it was the source devices. I mean, that was Cinemic's whole room, was that they were doing the source devices versus the speakers. It's hard to tell that kind of stuff. I kind of tend to think it's the speakers, but maybe not. So I'll be looking forward to see them in your room, see how they sound.
I think they're better in my room.
Ooh.
I think they're better.
Ooh.
There is a reason why I tore my entire room apart to get those speakers to work. Like, that is the reason.
It made sense to me a little bit when I heard them. I was like, wow, that sounds amazing.
Jeffrey pulled out a lot of stops to make that happen and get those speakers to be able to do what they do. So they're really cool. They're technically a point source for how we designed them, even though they're 2 independent drivers. How they're designed, they operate with the waveguide as a point source. So they integrate really well with the rest of the point sources, with the coaxials in the theater. But they're really cool. But what else?
Cinemic, in my opinion, should have probably bypassed the movie demos. And I might stand not uniformly with this, because I know some other people said that kind of drew them into the room, was hearing some amazing movie content. But to me, when you downmix those like movie trailers to 2-channel, when we're all used to the higher channel count stuff, it seems like it's just missing a fact. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until when they were doing the movie stuff, I was like, yeah, this is cool, but that's not how I would ever use these speakers, and it doesn't sound as good as with a multi-channel room. It was when they went to the 2-channel and he gave me the remote and let me play some of the stuff I was familiar with.
You and I have talked about this before, that when you get into movies and stuff, there's so much going on, it can be kind of distracting. Now, just because there's so many sound effects, there's so many things layered over top of each other, it's not designed to be in that 2-channel environment. It's designed to be more in a multi-channel environment. So when you get something like 2-channel music that's designed to be in that, it's a different experience. But I understand why they did it. I think it's because they wanted to pull people in, and they do excel at that. They do. I think a speaker that is able to do sound reproduction really well is going to excel at whatever you give it. It doesn't really matter. MW asks, what's the crossover of the Black Swan? The crossover, the Black Swan horn to the woofer is right around 300 hertz. So the horn gets down really low in comparison to what most other tweeters and stuff would be able to do.
The rest of the rooms, I didn't think there was a bad room in there that I heard. All of them had their own, little unique pieces. The SVS room was probably the one that didn't impress me as much as I thought it should, and that's probably even more so because last year it really did.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this a little bit.
Those new SVSs?
I didn't hardly get to hear them because they had, and this is the danger, right? Cinemic turned over the remote to me. I told you. They turned over the remote to somebody else in the room, in the SVS room, and they were playing songs that were not recorded well and didn't sound good. And that was my demo time in there. Like, that's when I was in there. So that's kind of a risk, especially if you're showcasing your product
Mm-hmm.
and there happens to be someone who has eccentric taste in music or just chooses poorly mixed tracks. I mean, I experienced that even in my own room with one of my guests on Friday night. Actually, it wasn't during the main sessions, but he said, "Hey, can we try some songs?" And he picked out some like punk rock songs, and I was like, "These sound like they're recorded at like 64 kilobit per second or something. These are horrible recorded." He goes, "Yeah, they sound bad on everything. I just wanted to hear how they sounded on your system." It's like, well, that's okay. I guess I get it, but you wouldn't want that kind of thing happening if you were showcasing your product for people who had never heard it before, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they don't know what's going on, and that happens to be the part they hear. So I don't know. There was something I was kind of thinking about that is if you were a vendor, like how do you handle that kind of thing? Are you okay with that handling the remote to someone? Because you don't know what they're going to pick.
Did
I
you
mean, like
watch? Go
literally,
ahead.
I choose this because it sounds bad on everything. It's not the kind of stuff you want to have at
It's
your
kind of an interesting
demo.
mindset.
He wanted to see if any speaker he ever heard could patch it, basically, or make it sound good, I think was his intent.
Well, crap in, crap out. A lot of times, it just turns into magic crap. It's not better. It's just got a hint of fairy dust on it.
Magic crap.
More crap.
Yeah.
So, did you have any takeaways from those speakers? Did you get to?
No, except for SVS had it set up wrong. That'd be my takeaway if they were trying to set it up. They kept talking about how they were designed with the concave surface in order to have the tweeter be equidistant from the speakers. Except for they weren't on blocks and our chairs were sitting higher. So if you're looking at the speaker, the tweeter was down here. That throws off the entire alignment proposition. That tweeter needs to be in the middle for that proposition to work. And so like I don't know, that seemed a little
Why
bit
were the
like,
chairs so high?
I don't know that they were high. They were just normal chairs. The speakers seemed low. To look at some pictures of that room, that tweeter was not ear level.
I guess when you sit on a couch, it's more like sitting in bucket seats than it is in like a folding chair.
Yeah, they would have needed to be on a cinder block or something. And I don't even know how much credence I'm giving that whole like philosophy without like further testing. You know, like we talked about that a little bit on one of the other streams. But if you're going to sell it that way, then it should at least look the part and match up with the right orientation. So I don't know. SVS in that particular instance didn't wow me over this year. The Martin Logan room, I didn't get to sit in the middle, but they're so directional when you're walking around the room. It was, not ideal.
It was it's what you expect from electrostatics.
I heard a lot of people that sat in the middle loved it, that type of thing, which is, like you say, what you would expect.
Yeah, it's what you'd expect.
The speaker shootout room was kind of fun because they sounded so different.
They were very different, weren't they?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The Focal and the SVS and the Martin Logan. My favorite in that room was the Martin Logan of the three.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Tim ended up buying JTR because his wife was in that room and heard the JTR in there. And she's like, these speakers aren't very good compared to what we've heard at the show. so Tim's wife had him buy JTR. She's like, these are a lot better. Tim was like, what?
Oh, man. Okay. That's... I can only imagine, like, my wife looking at me and going, the speakers we have at home suck. I need to buy new speakers.
I laughed real hard because Tim came up to me. He knows I'm not a huge fan of Klipsch speakers, and I don't. He makes it much stronger than my feelings are for him. But he's always like, "You hate Klipsch. You want to come to my house because I have Klipsch."
Jonathan does hate them.
That's not all true.
He's almost cut Tim off.
They're not my favorite speakers for multiple reasons. At any rate, he's been badgering me for years on this. Why do you hate Klipsch? Why do you hate Klipsch? And then he kind of approached me kind of like a dog with a tail between its legs and said, my wife agrees with you. She said my speakers aren't very good.
My wife agrees with you.
So yeah, I mean, literally, Crystal, Tim's wife, was like, "You can buy the JTR if you want. They sound a lot better." So
now was it? Did he get 3 or did he get all of them?
He went with 3 so far, and he's trying to work out a deal, I think, with Jeff and maybe Mark to get Mark's single 8s for his ceiling. Slant 8s. I'm not sure if they're single 8s or slant 8s.
Mark's upgrading?
Mark's upgrading to the 10s.
Because Mark needs more energy in his room.
As Mark goes to 10s, he would sell Tim the 8s type thing. I think is what they're trying to negotiate.
Okay. And I don't think Jonathan's saying, MW's saying that Klipsch has some great horns. I don't think we're saying that all Klipsch. It's just... No.
I'm talking more of the consumer line stuff.
Yeah.
Man.
Klipsch has some awesome, like their Heritage line and stuff, some awesome speakers. It's...
Scrappy Doo had a set of Klipsch Cinema speakers that were like actual pro cinema for the theater at his theater at one point, and they sounded great. So yeah, I mean, there's just levels and tiers.
And I think every manufacturer has some of those.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's what. How can I put this? Ignorance is cheap.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, you guys know this. We've talked about this on many podcasts. What I like, or what you like, or what Ryan likes, they can all be different, and there's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with that. Like,
yeah.
there's just nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that they're bad speakers.
And
You know, doesn't like them as
I
much.
use this as we talk about this a lot in projectors that you don't really notice like a native contrast ratio until you put it directly next to another one, right? You don't notice how big of a difference there can be in just black level and a full black scene between projectors. So why does it matter in
Mm-hmm.
some cases? Same thing can be said for speakers. Like when we were doing the speaker comparison in the Kincaid room, how would you notice if you didn't have a speaker right next to it? You don't have a frame of reference. So at some point, it doesn't matter nearly as much. You've got to understand that you're not going to have a pair of the Focal or the Martin Logans right next to him and be able to say, oh, I hear the difference. Our brain's auditory and video memory isn't that long. And so, you know, it's okay. It
And then the
doesn't
other thing
matter
that's
nearly
worth
as much.
pointing out too, Ryan, is that when I was in that room, there were multiple people in there, not a huge amount, maybe a half dozen or something. And they were kind of saying like, which one do you like the best? And we were all talking back and forth. And there was different preferences, first, second, third,
Absolutely.
between the different people sitting there. We're all sitting in the same room. They're all cued the same. We're all in reasonably close symmetry as far as where we're sitting. Maybe not exactly, obviously a couple feet over, but the rows were pretty tight. It wasn't like big boundary interactions because these are huge rooms. At any rate, like Bob was in there. He's like, I like the Focals the best. They're my favorite. And then I think he liked the Martin Logan second and the Clips third type thing. My preference in the order was the Martin Logan first, the Clip second, and Focal third. So again, preferences being what they are doesn't mean that there's a real order. You'd have to have a lot of votes to sum up to figure out the real order, but people have different preferences.
Well, and I want to backtrack in what I said when I said ignorance is cheap. What I meant is that a lot of times when you start getting more into this space, you start chasing the rabbit more. That wasn't to say like Klipsch is cheap. It's more about you're chasing the rabbit maybe based on something that you're trying to get out of something. It's perfectly fine to like Klipsch. A lot of people do. And there's a reason why they have the cult following and things like the Klipsch forum exist. So that's not me saying that Klipsch is a bad speaker. It's more to say that there are, you know, once you start learning more about it, you start chasing things and you start figuring out what you like. And then it starts getting more expensive because you start adding more and you're constantly changing things. I mean, look at Jonathan. He's like, I'm done. No, I'm going to add 6 more subwoofers.
3 more. And now my wife's going to be, she's probably listening upstairs like, what? Huh?
Megan, it's 6. No, it's 3. It's 3. So MW brings up a good question. Christie versus JVC. You've been kind of baffled by this for a while. With what that JVC
are you asking me, or
like.
are you going to you respond? You've responded.
I did. I'm asking you.
The JVC 900 kind of blew my mind, if I'm being real clear. Like in that room, and I'll give credit to their source material in all likelihood because they had an 8K file server in there, and their content was that like Jacob and Katie Schwartz off YouTube, like
Oh yeah,
with the red cam, like native raw 8K material. Holy smokes, that was a good looking picture. And
art of the demo, baby.
Nothing else compared to that at that show, in my opinion. Like that JVC was amazing. It was on a 1.3 gain Stewart screen with not AT, so it was just you had the true 1.3, no hot spotting, fantastic blacks. They had the room blacked out better than most of the rooms, exit sign covered.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do anything with the carpet or the walls or anything, but there was an attempt made to reduce light.
Mm-hmm.
And that source material, I would like to have that source material and just look at it, what it looks like on a regular, you know, like an older JVC or even my Epson, just to see what it looks like, because there was magic things happening with that picture. It was jaw dropping, and I don't think I got jaw dropping at anything else. The only other projector screen that I thought was maybe jaw dropping was maybe one scene in the Grimani room. The Prometheus scene looked really, really good on that gigantic screen with that. Was it a Christie they had in there as well?
Yeah, it was an M4K.
Yeah, that looked really, really good. Deep blacks, super bright whites, nice, interesting contrast with that kind of world graphic floating around stuff. That looked really good.
How did that do on your eyes?
That particular one in the Grimani room didn't bother me, but when I pulled up my phone and like did a slow motion, it's doing PWM. but that PWM takes a while to bother my eyes unless it's really really observable, like the DLP rainbow stuff that's going on in that projector comparison room. We talked about that a little bit on the guys that
I
I was
didn't hear
talking
about
about.
this.
So there was a inexpensive Christie, less than $15,000 in the projector shootout room,
Mm-hmm.
and that thing was like a DLP rainbow machine. I mean, I'm just looking at it. You know how you're supposed to dart your eyes to see rainbows? Like you just do this and you can see them, or turn your head and you can see rainbows. That Christie in that projector shootout room, I just looked at it and it was like a rainbow acid trip. Like I was watching, Dread, your favorite movie, and that little like acid trip scene. Like it was doing crazy things to my eyes without moving my eyes. So that was like a non-starter completely. Um, a lot of the DLPs, I'll see rainbows if I flick my eyes, but that one was the worst I've ever seen.
So then, how do you do movie theaters?
I can see like the flickering on it, but it's like a 24 frames per second flickering. So for me to feel that sunburnt feel, like where it's really bothersome, I'll feel it through the course of a movie, but it will be really bothersome in 2 or 3 days later if I watch 2 or 3 movies in a row. So like with the JVC, that was when it really became a bother. If I used it 2 or 3 nights in a row, it would really start bothering my eyes.
I see.
A single night movie, they'll be a little sore. They'll feel like kind of a little sunburnt, but it won't be like, I'm not seeing pulsing effects. I mean, with the JVC, if I used it for like 3 days in a row, any light source I look at was like pulsing, like after the effect for the whole next day. It
Man,
was it was ridiculous. I don't get that after a single movie. It's like a few days.
that's interesting. Wonder what the Griffin will be like for you. I mean, the Griffin's going to be like it is at an AMC theater, so it's
Yeah, that's
you
fine.
know what it's going to be like. Okay, well, that's something we've been battling. Is the lens I had initially had some issues, so it got sent back. It's getting worked on, and then I've got a demo lens, and it's got issues.
What do you mean
Um,
issues? Tell me more.
it's um, can we put this? The What was wrong with that lens?
Uniformity or something, or like
Yeah, it's uniformity issues. And the demo lens I have, I mean, it's been shipped all over the place. It's been beat to hell, so I can't fault it.
wait a minute, it's glass. Is it scratched up or isn't it? Because if
No,
it's then it's not then it's bad manufacturing, or what's happening there? That doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's scratched. I haven't looked at it. But it's got like motors, or the motors in the lens have some issues, and you can hear them like click, 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 click as it's trying to move some stuff around, and it gets stuck sometimes. And because I mean, it's a complicated lens. The lens is like this big. I mean, it's enormous. So it's just got some problems. And while my lens is getting worked on, I mean, I've got this one for the time being. And then the projector is so bright, I have moire. So now I'm fighting
Do
that.
you need a lower gain screen?
Maybe, I don't know. I can see the black backer behind it.
Hmm.
Like I just the wave lines and stuff coming through it, and they're all even, and it's definitely moire. And the brighter I turn up the projector, the more pronounced it gets. And I'm at like 30% laser,
Wait a
and
minute.
it's
Remind me what screen you went with. What screen are you on?
the Screen Excellence Neo.
So that's the 4K fabric, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you seeing more on that?
I think it's the backer.
Is the backer not equidistant from the screen, maybe, or something? Is it wavy?
I don't
I don't.
think so. You'll have to see it. I mean,
Maybe make sure it's pulled tight.
it's pretty tight. I mean, maybe I could go tighter, but it's tight. I don't know. First world problems.
So Ryan pointed out in the chat, and he's right. When we went to the JTR room on Saturday night, and he played Dune 2. He's just started the movie and let it roll, and we watched, I don't know, the first third of the movie or something. It was pretty fun, fantastic, really. The room sounded excellent. Anyway, that Barco projector, I looked over at Ryan at one point, and he's like, he said it himself too. Do you have problems with motion on this one? It was bothering my eyes a little bit, and I said, yeah, it does. I also was getting that sunburn effect from the Barco in that room. Truthfully, the only projector in that whole place that didn't have something that would bother my eyes is the dang Epson. So that's kind of discouraging.
Epson!
Like there's no other choices. I mean, I like my Epson, don't get me wrong, but that's the only choice I have with the way my eyes work. Wah wah.
I mean, it's not a bad problem to have. It's not a crappy projector.
It's a
It's a
nice
good
projector.
projector.
Yeah.
It's a good projector.
JVC doesn't
Maintains
have
its
any
resale
intent to
value.
change their technology.
JVC
So
just sucks. Don't know what to
no,
tell
but
you.
I mean they don't that I've read that's how their technology works. Like they use PWM to control the brightness, and they're not planning on changing it. Sony's PWM is way worse than JVC's. All these Barco and Christie's did the same stuff. So that's
So
it.
now I know how to torture Jonathan. I'm just going to go get 4 Sony projectors, fire them at each interior wall and one at the
Oh,
ceiling, so
no.
5. And he's just going to be in a perpetual
I'll just be in the corner
eye sunburntness.
in the fetal position.
Yeah. Being blanketed by PWM. CIA, there you go.
MWS, what's the max size you would go with the JVC N900, NZ900?
I had a MAD dealer today on a 900 on a 240-inch screen.
How'd it look? You weren't there though. You just heard it remotely.
It was 36 nits.
That's not bright enough.
No.
But that's got to be somewhat screen related, right? Because this was a 165-inch screen at the show, and I'm telling you, it looked the best in the whole place.
Yeah, but 165 is way different than 240.
Sure. But it's not small. 165 is bigger than what most enthusiasts have in their room.
No, but it's like 20 inches bigger than what I had. So you were probably at about 100 nits, maybe a little bit over with 1.3. Because I was at 155 after calibration. So you actually may be higher than that. I mean, 240 is enormous. That's a huge screen.
What's really curious to me about that JVC is you read people on the forum saying that the differences in the NZ9 and the NZ900 are almost inconsequential, like sample variance territory.
But who's saying that?
It's what I read. Some of the calibrators even saying like if you get a good sample NZ9 or a bad sample NZ900, it could be like the NZ9's better type discussions. I would like to see the NZ9 with they didn't have any video processing or anything. They just had those raw 8K files, which is the magic, I'm sure. But I'd like to see an NZ9 in there just to kind of compare because I've seen NZ9s before. In fact, the best projector I've ever seen before I saw this NZ900 was your room with the NZ9 and the Mad Envy. It looked fantastic. Yeah. Mad VR Envy. But I think that 8K source material, if that's probably might have been all it was, because a lot of the Blu-rays and stuff we watch are like 2K.
Yeah. Well, and you're on a vinyl screen.
Yeah.
You're not on an acoustically transparent screen, which is
big deal.
Is saying something. I mean, that's going to be something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like how like an OLED or a modern mini QLED or something will have like HDR that really pops, like the fluorescence really come through sharp and strong. That JVC was doing it, and I'm not sure I saw that on any of the projectors at the show. So not to get stuck there, but they did a great job demoing their product.
Good. Glad it was good. Glad it turned out well.
Yeah.
I don't think if there's anything else interesting. What'd you think of the RBH room?
I didn't hear anything bad in there per se, but I did feel like, and I said this on the group with the 4 guys that we were talking with from my podcast, I felt like the RBH were giving a sound signature that they were kind of nearing their limits. Mm-hmm. That if you turned it up 3 dB more, as the example I gave, you might not like the sound you got. I can kind of tell that the bass or the lower frequencies kind of get like a burdened sound in any speaker as they start getting up towards their limits, and it's kind of like telling. And I was hearing that a little bit in the RBH room, especially with their towers. And they were saying like, we don't need subs. Listen how much bass these towers have. And I said, yeah, you need bass and you need subwoofers because this is not.
Did you tell them that?
Right. No, I was just thinking that. Told my friends that I was standing by. Like he's like, you don't need subs. Like, yeah, you do need subs. But they sounded good. Like they were I just felt like they were maybe at that cusp. Nice looking room. There was an NZ900 in there, but it was a pre-production sample, and I don't think that one called its attention to itself anywhere near like the one in the JVC room. And it was just playing like Blu-ray, UHD tracks type things.
I'd be interested to know how much of it is actually demo content, but it's so hard to tell because you need the 8K source material.
I think it probably has a lot more to do with that than anything else.
And then you need to be able to feed it 8K. Like you've got to, yeah, that's tough. Tough.
Does Mad VR have any 8K material that you can play with? Do you have any 8K material?
Nope.
Man, you guys should contract with that Jacob and Katie Schwartz and get some.
We can upscale to 8K, but we don't have any 8K native.
Raw.
Yeah. So it's just nice to be done. It was nice to not move 4 26-foot trucks, though.
Sure.
I was done like that afternoon. So that
When I
was
talked to you
great.
the show, you were worried about some of the logistics still being complicated. Did that all get sorted out okay?
Yeah.
For Sunday, getting rid of a
Yeah,
few
I was worried
stuff.
about some of the dealers that needed stuff picked up on Monday, but we got it figured out. So we're making some changes for next year in that, I'm going to have a room that's reserved for Monday so that we can get the shipments in. There's going to be a freight court like desk there for the vendors to use to get things orchestrated. And so there's some things that we're going to do. Um, it's a learning experience. But no, it all got taken care of. Nothing got
Good.
lost. Everybody was happy. MW now asks, how is the RTJ having larger horn than JTR versus the Black Swan? Did you listen to the RTJ
I did. They
channel?
said it awesome.
Yeah.
And there I stayed in there probably as long as I did on the other one. I really like RTJ speakers. I really like JTR speakers. I thought the Black Swan had a little bit of an edge on what I heard. Of course, they're way more expensive too. Black Swan are 35,000 a piece, something like that. Ryan, is that right?
27.
Yeah, and the RTJs are like what? Way, 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 way cheaper.
No, not if you include the subs. I think they're like 40 to 45 a pair, something like that.
Yeah, and it wasn't the same demo content for what it's worth. So I got to pick the content I wanted in the Black Swan room, which I was familiar with, and the content in the RTJ room was just playing what was playing. But it sounded great. I mean, I don't have any
Good.
complaints. Like I really liked what I heard.
Good.
I didn't
That's
get
good.
tears like I did with the Black Swans, which
Well,
can mean something or not.
well,
I think it means something. If I'm just
emotional connection to a piece of music, I think is pretty telling.
Mhm.
So, but yeah. Anything else? Nobody's asking questions, so we can keep talking.
The TV comparison room was cool. I went in there for a little while, and there seemed to be a lot of crowd in there every time I walked by. Like a lot of people getting good valuable information in there with all those TVs set side by side. People hands on the remotes. Like you want to test a setting, test it. Fine, have at it. Deep Sea Sound was there and had some neat boxes, beautiful boxes that they do with their crafting. The aluminum box they had, did you see that? Custom made, custom fab.
Yes, I did.
That was cool. The Ascendo room was a little bit tame for my taste at a show like that, where everything's over the top, but it's good. I don't have any complaints.
Different mindset.
Mm-hmm. I thought some of the rooms might have been a little over EQ'd, but my thoughts on that too. I think I can tell the vocal dialogue sometimes when they're a little over EQ'd. And I felt like that might be the case in the Gramani room at one point for the first day, but not so much the second day. And in the Ascendo room, the time I was in there, I don't remember which day it was, but I was only in there once. I thought they might be a little over EQ'd.
Which Ascendo room?
Not the Black Swan room. The full home theater room.
Gotcha. Okay.
What else am I missing? The other room we're talking about, stereo integrity. I was in there for a little while, but they weren't playing much music when I was in there. They were getting ready to switch, so I didn't get to hear a whole lot. But they sounded great. I heard a lot of people say that the bass there was as much as or more than any other place in the entire any other room in the entire place.
Really?
When they let it loose.
I mean, they popped
6 or 8
breakers
24s.
like 6 times. So
yeah,
I got to tell them to tone it down for next year.
Did you guys get any complaints from the venue?
No, it was more about just having the electricians out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the main issue.
Did the stereo integrity room ask for upgraded power, or were they just trying to go off the main default room?
I think they were on 208. They probably needed a couple drops instead of just one. The main issue is that it was a prolonged period of time. So the breakers were slowly just heating up, and they were getting to the point that they were just tripping a lot more. So if it was just happening for like an hour, it probably wouldn't have been a problem, but it was happening for multiple days. So the breakers would slowly heat up and not be able to dissipate the heat. So it would happen faster and faster and faster and faster. And that was what was ending up happening, it seemed like. We'll address it next year. I mean, we know it'll happen, so we have a better way to be able to deal with it.
I think that we already talked about it a little bit, but I do want to emphasize that JTR room for Dune 2 is something special. That was probably my favorite overall room for the home theater experience of the show, because and it was probably just because we've all watched Dune 2 at this point. I just watched it in the commercial cinema,
I
but
haven't.
I haven't bought it yet, so I haven't watched it at home. But it was just such a phenomenal presentation. I mean, with full size surround speakers, every single speaker was like a 212 RT, right? So they're full bandwidth, and they had a sub surrounded with each different speaker. So full bandwidth, the entire thing. And it was like with the Dune soundtrack and with all the little like weird sounds that are coming through there all the time, just to have that all that super low LFE coming out of everywhere. It was fantastic, just fantastic. And I didn't get to sit in there for too many of just the demo clips, but that Dune 2 presentation for the movie was epic.
I didn't get to experience that. Heard it was really loud.
I didn't go in there during the 140 dB demos. I've had my
Did
fill
he
of
turn it down for the Dune stuff a little bit?
at Dune. We were just watching it. Either I think it might have been a couple dB under reference, so like maybe
Oh,
-2 for the full
okay.
length movie.
Okay. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I would have enjoyed that more. What did you think of the 32-inch Descendo?
Sounded great in that room with the mic cinema or cinema mic.
Mm-hmm.
It was great.
With the Black Swans?
Mm-hmm. They did, especially like with the movie soundtracks when they were like really showing what those things could do. They were probably playing those movie tracks 5 or 10 dB over reference. There wasn't a bad sound to be heard. I mean, like I say, it was down mixed. You're used to having more channels, so it wasn't like impressive in that sense because it was just 2 channels.
Mm-hmm.
But it was impressive in the sense that there was no bad sound coming out of anything, and it was that loud. It sounded super clean and super clear.
Well,
I think some of the guys that were in that cinema move were saying like on Friday and Saturday night that things were not quite as dialed in as they were later. But when I was
Adam
in there,
Peltz
things
went
dialed
in and recalibrated
Mhm.
and did some stuff. But for headroom on those Ascendo subwoofers, so we did some recalibration on Saturday after the show on my room, and we took the measurement. So we took the frequency response measurement for the subs at 107 dB,
Mhm.
and the F3 was 4. And then we checked the subwoofer amp, like how much power they were using, and we still had 40% headroom.
Nice.
So I think we're probably flat up to past reference down to like 4, would be my guess. Probably up to like 120 is probably where we are.
So keep in mind though that 40% more headroom is less than 3 dB because 3 dB is a doubling of power. So
Well,
you're looking at not very much more headroom with 40.
I don't know how much what subs we were actually looking at. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'd be curious to do the same test, and not that you're running out of power. You have a ton of power, and you have a ton of drivers in there. But as you raise up towards
Yeah.
reference, you'll start your F3 will lower, or will raise rather. It will be at a higher frequency where it rolls off. Just out of curiosity, it'd be interesting to see where that is like a THX reference.
Well, we were
115.
applying shelves. So I don't know how much it'll actually roll off.
Are they
because it was-
dynamic EQ shelves? So in general terms, you can apply all the shelf you want. You could make it flat to 1 hertz,
Yes.
and as
it comes up, it'll start rolling
it'll just
back.
go back to
Yeah.
its natural response.
Yes.
It won't pay attention to your EQ.
I just don't know where we didn't run any compression tests, so I have no idea where. That was just where we did the test, and that's where we stopped. So the
That's
point
pretty
of I bring up the shelf is because we don't know if we could have gone further. Like I don't know if we could have gone down to 3. I have no idea. That's just as high as we took the shelf, and then we stopped. We didn't feel it was necessary to go any further. So it's still a lot of work to do, though. I'm kind of getting tired of doing all the work. I just want to sit down and watch a movie
on the crack.
on the crack with my cream. For context, JTR verse 32. I don't really have an answer to that.
Yeah, that's not going to be quite the same situation because they had a bunch of 4,000 ULFs. I would think a 32 might have more output than a 4,000 ULF, even though the 4,000 ULF is ported to 10 hertz and 32 is sealed, right? 32 is sealed. That's just such a massive driver on that 32.
Jeffrey has told me he doesn't have an amp yet that can drive that driver.
Remember, and it may not apply as you go up to these boutique sizes, but remember that usually when you double a subwoofer driver, it's equivalent of the next size up. So 218s might be equivalent to a single 21 or maybe a single 24 if they're very capable drivers. You're not in the ballpark of a 32. so long as that 32 is like a legitimate 32, which by all accounts these Ascendo drivers are. I would be curious to see some benchmarks on it, like some actual testing from Audioholics or something, but database if they were still around.
Well, he's got Clipple data on it.
Does it? But they don't really do like max output testing, do they? At least, do they? Yeah, show that with me sometime. Let's look at it.
I think they're down to like 5, at like 105. I think is
What's
where
their
they're at.
What's their actual peak output? Do you know? Like if they're going for just max output?
I don't know. Like at what frequency and what the output is, I have no idea. I think it's probably like 140, 145 at like mid.
Now
region.
the gotcha on this too is if you're trying to compare the JTR room, he had what, like 8 of those 4,000 ULFs,
Oh yeah,
232s.
he had way more bass.
In that context, the JTR room's going to have
Yeah.
more bass. But if you're just doing 1-to-1,
I don't think it's I don't think it's a really a fair comparison. They're designed for two completely different things. So I don't
both
think
super good quality stuff. I mean, the 4,000 ULF is like a rock star in the database where they were comparing it to basically everything that existed at the time. And that Ascendo 32, by all accounts, is just top shelf as well.
Yeah, I don't know enough about them to be able to compare them justly, I should say. Anything else? We got to come up with a topic for next time. I guess today's topic was talking about MWAVE.
Yeah, I think we talked about most of the rooms, didn't we? There were some gear vendors and stuff out in the hallways that were kind of showing some video streamers or Mad
Kevin
VR
was
has
asking
on-
Valencia or
Oh.
row 1. So Barcelona versus Calvary.
which one was
The
Barcelona?
low back ones. The low back chairs.
I don't
You
know.
have a low back chair, so you have a direct
So
comparison.
I'm not happy with my chairs over either one of those. But I'll tell you one thing. Like one of the chairs, the ones that was in, which one was in the JTR room?
Row 1.
They had an armrest that was squirrely. Like when you sat down,
It could move.
it moved. It's
Yeah.
a sliding armrest to cover a cup holder. But it was like anytime someone was getting up or down, that thing was moving around. Or if you tried to sit down and like hold the arm, to lower yourself in, it would move. I'm not a big fan of that. It needs to lock in place or something.
So how'd you break your neck? I was trying to sit down in a chair.
Yeah. They were all fairly comfortable. Like I don't think I sat in an uncomfortable chair at the show. And Valencia had, for instance, like 7 or 8 models, and
That was great.
Yeah, they were in a semicircle, and you could sit down and listen.
Yeah,
feel
and
them all.
Todd had a bunch of his chairs over by the JTR room. I think it's nice for people to be able to see and experience things, especially things like seating. So I think a lot of times that's overlooked. We pay so much attention to the like speakers and the projectors, and we don't pay a lot of attention to the seating.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Kramer says if Calvary had a fixed armrest, he'd pick it.
Yeah, I liked those red seats over by Desert Dome's. What's his Impact AV's audio stand? Did you sit in those? I think they were row 1, weren't they?
I didn't
the
get a
red
chance
ones?
to sit in anything.
They were real comfortable. They were like Valencia's. You had those Valencia top model that you had. They were a lot like that.
Yeah, the Tuscany Ultimates
Mm-hmm.
that Brian Katz now has.
Yeah, I mean those premium seats are really spectacular.
Yeah, nice and firm.
Yeah, so Erod just asked any more testing. We talked about that a little bit earlier in the stream, so if you get a chance, just go back and rewind a little bit. You'll hear me talk on that.
Yep.
Haven't done any more testing. We've been we had MWAVE here. That took up a lot of our time. It's a couple weeks before MWAVE I did the majority of that testing, and then I've been on call and just relaxing after MWAVE, so I haven't really spent much
You
time.
were telling me today that you've done like 0 relaxing in the past week.
I'm
past few
trying to.
days.
I've had a lot of on-call, 12-hour days, 11-hour days. This last week, it's been
I
rough.
don't miss that IT on call.
I don't either. I wish that we didn't have it. Wish
Kind of a
that
necessary evil.
mess with it.
Oh well. Anything else? Nobody's asking any questions. I've been trying to get them as they come in. So
Yeah. I saw a couple things I'll relay to the audience in case they're interested. Adorama has that Clip 16, which did well at the show, like it sounded good, for $900 shipped, which
oh
is
my gosh,
just silly. I mean, that's the cheapest they've had it, and they've had it for cheap multiple times. It seems like it drops $50 every time it goes on sale. So yeah,
that's crazy.
$900 shipped. And then the other thing is that Oh, I just lost it. I don't know. We've been playing Little Big Planet in the house. So Steam's doing their annual sale right now, their summer sale, and Little Big Planet Sackboy is the newest version. That's the one we got. That's a lot of fun. The kids and I have really enjoyed that. 4-player couch co-op looks fantastic on the projector, like demo worthy for sure.
Really?
4K, beautiful color pop, like just a fun little platformer, a little co-op thing. If if Sloan wanted to play that with you, you should give it a try. It's pretty fun.
I'll have to look at that. She has my nephew over and they've been playing Mario Kart and watching Toy Story and
Hmm.
probably building a fort right now, is I think what I hear them doing in the living room. They've stayed out of the basement though pretty well, so that's good. But I'll have to look into Little Big Planet.
It's Sackboy. It's a Little Big Planet series, but the newest one is called Sackboy.
Okay.
It's really, really fun. And if your kid, like one of my kids is 6, she has trouble keeping up, but it doesn't matter. If she dies or falls off a cliff or whatever, she just respawns in like 30 seconds anyway. So she's having a blast too.
Mm-hmm. The other game that we had a lot of fun playing, I don't know if you played it with your kids, is Rayman Legends.
No, I never played that one.
You should do that because it's if somebody dies, it appears in a bubble and you have to pop them. So if you're in a really hard sequence, you can let the kids float around in a bubble
That's a good idea.
and you can beat it. But it's really just a platformer. That's all it
Mhm.
is. So it's pretty simplistic. They've got some really cool like music,
Mhm.
platforming to the music tracks. We
Mhm.
had a lot of fun when my son was 5 and 6 playing
Mhm.
that game. Super simple, not hard, not a bunch of button combinations and stuff. It's great for kids. We had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, and not to keep commenting on the Sackboy thing, but one more thing since you brought it up, the music in it's killer, and they got like mainstream licensed music, and the action on the game plays to the music and stuff, like Bruno Mars,
Yeah,
Uptown, that kind of stuff. It's really fun. Like that, it sounds fantastic in our home theaters. And it looks fantastic on the projector and everything. It's like a great choice.
I'll have to look into that and give that a try because my daughter does like playing things with me. We played it's like Toad's Adventure on the Switch or something, where it's like a platforming puzzle game that you have to go through, and
Hmm.
we just switched back and forth. I had to help her with some of the levels, but yeah, they really like that kind of stuff. The co-op, there needs to be more co-op games.
Hmm.
I wish that we were when we were growing up. It was like the golden age of co-op on the N64 and the PS2
Hmm.
and stuff, and then it all started going away with the PS3. Um, but oh well.
You've been
Oh
playing
well.
any Helldivers lately?
I played some today. Um,
What are you like level 900 now at this point?
97. So it's not that bad.
We were brand new, and you brought us into like the hardest area, and we
Hell,
were just
you did well.
trying to stay alive,
You
just trying
did
to run away.
well. So yeah, you did really well. But
That's a fun game.
I played a level today. Um, it's hard, I just try and play one and then go do something else because you get sucked in and you play 3 drops and it's been 3 hours. You're like,
Mhm.
just wasted 3 hours of my day. And then go upstairs. My wife's giving me the side eye because I've been down here doing stuff and she's been taking care of things when I should have been doing things. So,
Mhm.
got to be careful. Um, but yeah, Ian asks, Ian asks, have you been able to get your basement back together after all of the work? My basement, remarkably, is pretty clean right now. We got a lot of it out of the basement. For anybody that doesn't know, my basement was a complete and utter train wreck. We had sometimes 10 guys in my basement trying to get this theater put together during the upcoming to MWAVE, and it was, oh my gosh, we got a lot done. Huge shout outs to Cameron Troy of Insane AV, Todd Sutherland from Sutherland AV Marketing, Jeffrey Heinzel from Ascendo, Tony Kincaid from Kincaid, Bob, Ian. I know I'm missing people. I know I'm missing quite a few people, but all of those guys put in a tremendous amount of work. Oh, and huge shout outs to Doug Chappello for the subwoofer. I can't forget him. But it was a lot of work and a lot of people to get this thing operational, even to the state that it is now, which is all the panels that we had up. But yeah, things are good. I was highly stressed during that. I mean, verge of panic attack during all of that. And it's nice to have it where it works. And I can safely say that it doesn't suck. It does not suck.
That's a fantastic outcome.
Yeah, and the most common comment that I got, and this was very reassuring because I was very insecure about it, because you go in, you're like, man, was this worth it? Like, it's a huge commitment. It was building this showroom for myself and Mad VR, and you have this sense of insecurity about it. And hearing people, the most common comment that I got from people was, I should not have come here, because it showcased to them, I guess this is what they said, that what's possible and the journey that they have still left to get to. But even saying that, I want to emphasize this, that guys, a big part of the fun with this space is the journey. Like, don't let yourself think that, oh, these guys are so far ahead. And so, man, we've been doing this forever. And this guy over here, am I pointing at you? There?
I don't know where you're pointing.
Am I pointing over there at you, or am I
There you
pointing
go.
away? Okay.
There you
So
go.
that guy over there is the worst at getting people to spend money. He doesn't even try. Doesn't even try. He's just like, hey, and then he shoves you off a cliff. And then there you go. And he's tied a stick with a carrot that never comes off of you, and you're just constantly running after it, running down the hole with the rabbit. So the journey, I think, is the most fun of it. And what I've told people, anybody that asked, is the memories that I'm going to have from this space are actually of it being built, and the ones that I'm going to share with other people. Not necessarily the space, but the people that you get to share it with, right? I look back and I look at these movies and I look at these events and stuff. I'm like, well, what do I remember? I can kind of remember that the movie was good, but I don't really remember anything about it, that there was one moment that may have had X, Y, or Z reaction. But I'm going to remember the time that all of these guys, we spent so much time building this theater together. And I think in a lot of these content creators, videos that get made, and this is the whole industry. This isn't one specific thing. We spend too much time focusing on the material instead of the immaterial. And I think we should be focusing on the people and the experiences that made these rooms possible, and the journeys that the owners had in visioning and dreaming about the space. So what I think I'm going to do for this space is, on the left wall outside my room, we're going to get digitized signatures of everybody that was involved, and I'm going to get them on vinyl and then put them on the wall. And then they're going to be different sizes for how many for contribution, so that we can see who contributed. Because I think it's important to remember the people, and for other people to remember that these spaces, a lot of times, not in every case, unless you're like Ryan Kramer, the one-man army, a lot of these spaces it takes a village. Now, Ryan is the village. So I think it's important for people to remember that everybody that's been involved in these spaces and the experiences that they had. And then if that's on the wall to the Mad VR Experience Center, I get to look at it and remember, have flashbacks of all of those times that I hated my life building this theater. I didn't really hate my life. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work. So really enjoyed it. I had 10 guys. They weren't in bondage. God, Mike, jeez. Maybe he didn't mean that, but anyway, the theater's been good. It's been good. Somebody was asking something about the 50. Who? I think it was Ian. Gonna send data back to Ascendo now that you have proprietary box size for the 50. Jeffrey approved of it. The frequency response was virtually flat. We used 4 filters on 11 subs, and it was virtually, I think our deviation was like 2 dB or something like that, all the way down to 4. So he was very happy with it. 50, we had some problems with it. It was causing a resonance frequency in the Griffin at like 15 hertz. There's a fan assembly in the Griffin that sits in a U channel, and it was going at 15 hertz, and the whole projector was moving. That's how much it was. The fan chassis was moving inside of it. And then we made the mistake of trying to shim the 50 with rubber. That was a bad idea because the 50 compressed the rubber, and then as the driver, when we started to really get it going and it started excurging, the whole subwoofer was going like this on the rubber. So that
You
was an
mean like
experience.
a mat underneath it or something?
It was like little like shims, like it was just little pieces. So we had some on the front and some on the back, but since it could compress it and the weight shifted, I mean the sub with the driver weighs over 2,000 pounds. So if it moved at all, the rubber was going to compress. And we figured that out. We switched to wood shims, and that solved the problem. And then I used a Christie-approved zip tie method to zip tie the fan casing in the projector to stop it from moving. And then the projector is literally sitting on the subwoofer. That is the shelf for the Griffin. And it is on the rubber feet that I had on my couch that Jonathan recommended.
Hudson Hi-Fi.
Yep. The projector is sitting on those, and they're only when like Blade Runner or Dune, where there's the really heavy bass scenes, that is the only time, if you are really paying attention and staring at the screen, that you can see it move. And it's just kind of shaking just a little bit.
I think a little bit of that's A-okay. I actually like a little shake from the projection screen.
Great.
It's kind of fun.
And I can't even tell if it's me shaking the projector.
There
the
you
projector.
are.
You can't even tell.
There you are.
You know, for having the 4 feet on it, I'll probably put some more under it. It went from doing this to just this. So they did their job.
So was the lens that you had on that thing messed up before you installed it,
up.
or only after when it was done?
Before. Oh, the lens has an aneurysm being shook. No, it was messed up before. Because we would test it before the sub was even on. There were some concerning part because we did Live, Die, Repeat, that one. We turned that on.
The intro?
Yeah. I was a little concerned about that one.
That's
Something
a scary
happening.
one.
Nothing happened. We did, what was another one? The Into the Wormhole. Nothing happened.
Interstellar.
Yeah. One thing that I heard from the Cinemite guys were over yesterday, and they were shocked, and I'm very proud of this. I've got a couple that I need to hunt down at how little the room makes noise.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a couple. There's some cables and the doors making some noise, but even at reference in like Blade Runner and stuff or Enter the Wormhole, there's really not a lot of noise.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it's just being masked by the huge amounts of bombardment.
It'll just take a little while. Pretty soon it'll sound like aluminum cans in the back.
Oh,
of the trunk.
shut up. As the all strut like comes loose from all, and it all just caves in on top of me.
Yeah.
What happened? Oh, it was the 4D experience. I was living the wormhole, not entering it. I was living it.
Yeah.
So that, trying to think if there was anything else. The Moray, trying to figure out what the hell's going on with that. We'll talk to Evan from Seymour after the holiday. I finally have light in the theater. Didn't have lights during the demos. I didn't have any lights. I had to use a flashlight.
Well, you didn't have them hooked up, or they're not installed yet, or
they are now. Well, there's some lights. We're waiting on the downlight to come in. It's not here yet.
Did you decide if you're going to float your room with some RGB strips along the bottom? With that
there is
cap?
RGB strips along the bottom now. They're in a diffuser. I've got some work to do on cleaning those up and fixing some alignment on the panels and things, because you can see like how the panel lines up on some of them. I've got some little things, but there is an RGB strip that goes around the bottom.
Where are you filming from right now? I don't even recognize that in your house. Where are you? Or is this a fake background? I can't even tell.
No, that's my flight sim rig.
Oh, so you're in your gaming area.
We moved the flight sim rig out to the main area of the basement.
When did you paint it red?
Oh, that's why. No, those are acoustic panels.
Oh, I thought your walls were red.
No, the
Okay,
black ones and then the red ones. Those are the old ones from my room.
I see.
They just got moved out here to, try and absorb. That's probably why you didn't recognize where I was, because the colors are all different. So it was. I'm glad that's done. I got all the switches working, so I can switch. The Trinov's not set up yet, but it's cool to send the 12-volt trigger and hear a click, and all 17 of the switches flip over. So that's pretty cool. Glad I got that working.
You time aligned the clicks. 1 click for 17 things.
I didn't time align it. It's just
My
steps
impulse response on these HDMIs
within 500th of a millisecond. I got it.
is out of this
Tactile.
world.
Tactile. No, it's just stepped 12-volt triggers. So they just connect into each other. And, electricity is pretty fast. So it triggers and they all just flip over. So, but the Trinov's not configured yet. Adam Peltz is coming out end of September, and we'll get everything configured and ready to rock and roll. So right now it's just the Storm. So we have both. And the reason we did Storm is because the Trinov was not able to do an 11-channel multi-sub optimization. It could only do 4. So we were kind of pressed on time, so we just did the Storm for the time being. Trinov
So
will
is the
come
Storm using
eventually.
like their art? Do you have that engaged?
Nope.
To be done in the future, or not
maybe
yet?
We took the Jonathan approach, or very close to it.
That's it.
Dirac is the very basic version of Dirac, and we are only treating frequencies between 130 and 1K. That's it. The subs are untouched. Because subs are... Dirac did not like the subs very much and made them fall off a cliff at like 16 hertz. And I think we were down like 23 dB at 12. So we fixed that. So now there was no point in having Dirac do that because Jeffrey did it all manually and phasing's all perfect and it's great. So there was no point in having Dirac do that. We just had it do the mid region. It was fine. Now,
So when you have your comparisons available for Storm versus Trinoff for the community that comes in or your customers potentially, are you going to have those things set up kind of like this is the way the vendor recommends, this is the way the vendor recommends, that type of thing? Or is it going to be like, are you going to be able to play with it, or how are you deciding to do that?
So we're going to have all of that.
So much customization.
We're going to have all of that. All of that is going to be available. You're going to be able to do manual. So I'd like to have a full manual set up. I'd like to have kind of like this is Dirac doing a little bit.
Hands-off Dirac.
This is the full hands-off Dirac. This is Trinov, more manual. I don't know if it's necessary to do manual on both. And then kind of Trinov doing a little bit, and then Trinov doing full-on waveforming.
That sounds super.
And then on the other thing I want to do that we'll do is have different configurations that allow for this is 5.1, this is 7.1, this is 5.2, this is 7 subs 2. I don't know how many subs I would use. So on and so forth. So we can take out certain things so people can say, I'm going to have 9 speakers, and I can reconfigure the theater using child theaters to only have and be using those speakers so that people can hear. Am I gaining anything from having these channels? Am I... because Storm allows me to very easily switch back and forth between like having 4 overheads and 6, or 2 overheads, 4 and 6. And I think Trinov has the same capability. Don't quote me on that. I know Storm does, which is the only reason I say that. So that's all what we want to do. But I got to get everything else dialed in. I got to figure out these HDMI problems first, which I think I've gotten to the bottom of, maybe, hopefully. I say that, and I'm going to go back in there, and it's going to flash green on me again. I'm just going to yell. My wife's going to text me like, "What's wrong?" Like, things are breaking. Trying to think if there's anything else. No,
and there's no reason to go for a long time if we don't have it. So let's call it a night. We had a good time.
Call it a night. When do you want to do this officially? Sundays again?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can talk about that offline. I'm flexible most times,
Okay.
so we can pick a regular date, keep it Sundays or whatever we want to do.
Okay. And chat, if you have topics you want to talk about, let us know. It's always good to talk about what the community wants. I'm surprised we had almost 80 people in here at one point.
Where do you see that? I don't see that number.
Well, you're a loser. You can't see that.
I'm not the admin.
So we had almost 80 people in here.
Can
They're all
the
in-
customers, can our guests hear any difference the way we sound versus normal? Because we're on a different program tonight. We're on Restream
I don't know.
versus StreamYard. Do you guys, does this look and sound basically like it has been in the past?
Anybody? Maybe? I think there's maybe more of a delay here.
With the comments?
There must be more of a delay.
Hmm.
I don't
I'm
know
not
why
watching
there would be
active
more of a
live
delay. Maybe
comments.
there's a chat delay. I don't know.
Just
But
the
anyway,
inherent.
they'll tell us, and then we can discuss offline on what we want or if anything changes. So, well, gents and ladies, because there could be ladies out there. It's been a good one. We'll do more of these. I think we're going to start doing these weekly. We're going to stream both to Jonathan's and the Home Theater Savants channel, so it shouldn't matter where you go. I think, because I think they see two different chats, so I think I want to send them to like a restream chat so they can all see the same chat for two channels. Like it combines them like we see here. Because can you see the chat?
I do see the chat,
Yeah.
at least in the Restream here.
Yeah, so we
I'm
can
not
see
watching the real
both
time.
chats, and I think we need to send them out to restream. So we sound different.
Somebody says there's delays too. Juan says there's delays.
Sound is better. That's because Jonathan's here. That everything is better. All right, guys, we'll leave it here. Nice and early, 8:30. It's always nice when we have some of the night still left instead of it being 11 and us not knowing what to do with ourselves. But if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out to Ryan at Home Theater Savants. Or Jonathan, do you have an email they can reach out to you at?
No.
Okay. Well,
You're the guy.
I'm the guy. But you can comment on Jonathan's page. He's usually he's a shepherd. Maybe he's not a shepherd that you want because he usually ends up having you spend money. But he doesn't try to. It's just that's the path you end up going down. You're like, oh, what's this? Oh, I didn't know this was possible. Oh, here's another thing. It's like a kid in a candy store, and then it ends up, you're alone. Your wife has left you, and you're surrounded by speakers.
Oh my goodness, it's
You're
getting
surrounded
rough.
by speakers. They are your new family. Anyway, before I go too far down the hole, it's been a good one. We'll do more of this every week. Hope you guys have a good one. Hope you had a good holiday. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe.